and welcome to the Brain Development Podcast. We're here to show parents there is a pathway to healing their behavioural and learning symptoms of their neurodiverse child. And my purpose is to help empower parents to understand how they can build their child's brain from the bottom up to invoke change. And this evening, amazingly, I have Dr. Jen from Australia. She runs an incredible clinic called Nurturing Brain Potential, and she is getting some amazing results. She's been on Australian television programs, Channel 9 News and Sunrise. She's a functional neurologist and neurodevelopmental specialist, renowned for work in uncovering and addressing the underlying neurological potential in children. And she has been working with families in terms of using non-invasive strategies to optimize the brain's foundation and development. So she works with children to overcome their challenges in terms of speech, and she's got so many kids speaking who are non-verbal. She works with their sensory processing issues, learning difficulties, and helping them with their behavioral regulation. And basically it comes down to imbalances, and we're going to be diving into that in terms of those imbalances in a disorganized nervous system around bottom-up development, primitive reflexes, and cross-hemisphere communication. Jen, it's amazing to have you on the podcast. I'm so grateful you could spare this time. I know that you've got a very busy clinic and you're helping so many families across Australia. Tell me about how you got into this. How did you even start in this field?
One, it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be on this podcast with you, Lara, like after meeting you all those years ago. Okay, so my why is I studied pediatrics and chiropractic, and I was seeing a lot of these kids, what I call my alphabet kids, the AB, they're coming in with ODD, PDD, all these alphabets, and they're getting diagnosed. Yeah. And I found chiropractic helped to a certain extent, but there was a big missing link. And in 2016, Dr. Robert Murillo actually came out to Australia and he was speaking, and I was like, was my aha moment. This is like the why, this is the how, this to help these kids. But I have to say I was a bit reluctant to study because I just finished my master's, and I thought, the thought of studying was just, but it took me 6 months and took me on a journey to start studying with Dr. Rob Murillo, and I do have my fellowship in functional neurology. So I'm very grateful to Dr. Rob. But I think the thing that trajectory that changed everything for Nurturing Brain Potential was when I met Dr. Carl Daigle, and you were there, Lara, in Amsterdam when we were looking at Archie. And after that, I started following Dr. Daigle's protocols, and when I went home to Nurturing Brain, that's when I started unlocking speech. So my first nonverbal kid is Miss Hello Lee. She's my poster child. She came in at 3.5, kicking, screaming. I think she scratched my face, was just unbelievable. We got her speaking within 4 to 6 weeks.
Really?
And she said her first word, and she's now still coming in, and now she doesn't shut up. She just chatters non-stop. So I think following the foundations of Dr. Robert Murillo's work and then using Dr. Carl Daigle's protocols, we've managed to unlock. We're now up to 41 nonverbal kids and adults speaking. Yeah, wow. Which is amazing.
And your clinic's grown so much over the past few years, hasn't it?
It has. It's unbelievable. We do have a bit of a waiting list, and I've just found the most amazing functional neurologist to join my team. So it's taking the pressure off, which is incredible. And I've been training him, and he's getting some awesome results as well.
So tell me what you do when you have a child that comes in. How do you help those parents really understand what's going on in that child's brain?
Okay, so we work very differently to the medical side, where, as you mentioned before, we're looking at development but bottom up. So all of this is developmental neurology. As Dr. Robert Murillo says, a lot of the times when these kids get MRIs, there's actually nothing wrong in the brain. But what it is connections. So if we know the underdeveloped areas in the brain, and if we can use lasers, photobiomodulation, and various modalities to stimulate the brain, then we can develop these pathways. Because a lot of this, as I said to the parents, what we have coming in is your child's really intelligent. But the trouble is they might have an 11-year-old brain on the left side, but they might be still stuck in that 2-year-old tantrum stage, or they could be stuck in the 3-year-old, the why, the repetitiveness, they have to do things a certain way, the phrases are very repetitive, and that's a normal developmental stage. Like when my son was going through at 3 years old and doing the why, no one questioned it because it's normal.
Yeah.
And you wanted to, because if you asked me one more time why, you'd be like, oh my god, why can't you just I've just told you. But that's normal development. But if you see it in a 9-year-old or 10-year-old and you don't understand that they're stuck in that developmental phase, it annoys the hell out of you. And the same with meltdowns. Like we go through normal meltdowns because our brain has to learn how to emotionally regulate. And in a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, we see them in the supermarkets, they're kicking and screaming and they're having their full-blown tantrum.
Yeah.
And we go, oh, that's just part of development. But when you see a 10-year-old or 11-year-old doing that in the supermarkets, you start to raise your eyebrows. And then you start to look at the parents, and that's when the judgment comes in. And what I tell my parents is that in a 2-year-old, that's quite accepted behavior. But in a 10-year-old, people will look at you and go, oh, it's your parenting style. But what it is that I tell all my parents, it's not behavioral, it's neurological. When you understand the neurology behind that behavior, it makes it so much easier to accept. And that's only that's just a transitional part of development. And if we can speed up that development, we're going to move past it. And I tell my parents, every tantrum is one less. So if we get tantrums, and when we do our work, we do increase the amount of tantrums, but it's very quick. In a few weeks' time, that nervous system starts to regulate, and that child can start to regulate their emotions so much better, and things become easier for that family.
And how do you assess them in clinic when they're kicking and screaming? And how do you ensure that you understand what's really going on in that child?
Okay, I'm very quick. My team laugh at me because I've got one kid that comes in and runs around, and I just go up to him, I'm just going to give you a little hug, which is actually like a football hole. And we explain to the parents, we go, there's 2 ways we can do it. We need to go through this. They can either, we don't force the child, and then we explain the darling in fight flight. So we can either have the parents holding them down and we just go laser with halo, which is what I had to do because there's no way to sit down. Or I have a young boy that comes in, is 8, and I just run around with him. He's on the couch. I'm on the couch with the lasers. He's down the ground. My team's there with the Resimax. It's up, down, run around, and he self-regulates by pulling cardboard apart. So we get prepared. So when he comes in, we've actually got a box of cardboard that he just sits there and rips. He rips my plants as well. But so we give him things to do that he self-regulates with. So we've got cardboard everywhere. He once got the tissue box, and that was in pieces everywhere. But I work with that child. So Dad tries to hold him, but he's very strong. So we just work with him. And Dad's a single dad, so he doesn't want to... obviously, he doesn't want to hold his child down, okay? And I get it. So then we just work with that. So my team are very, very quick, and they're very good. So we run and put Resimax on the belly. We basically do what we can. And I said to my new associate, I said to him, look, with a child like that, you examine as much as you can. Like with the motor reflex, we're not going to be able to get them to do what we want them to do. So we just change how we do that.
Yeah.
We get Dad to do a koala hope. We get Dad to drop him down, and then we watch the reactions. With a lot of the time, you can look at the face and facial expression, and that gives you so much information about the brain. Yeah. So in an examination with a child like that, I'm very quick. I do what I need to do. I get the information that I need, and we go from there. And with this child, Cruz, if he comes in and all we can do is vagal, by just doing that little bit, he's been able to go to the toilet.
Yeah,
like he's been able to go to the toilet on himself.
Yeah.
And we haven't done like the full-on experience like everybody else, because I can just do what I can. And what his dad has said in that time, we still haven't got him verbal, but he's trying new noises. And Dad has said the school has come back and said, we're happy to have him longer in school. Because obviously with a child like that, he was only going to school for two hours a day. And Dad said the school has said he's sitting still a lot more. He's taking a lot more in, and he's, and they're happy to have him for longer next year. which
well,
is
they're
amazing.
small wins, but they're big wins because you can see the progress. And that's, every change. I remember Dr. Malillo saying, every change is good change, even if it's, it's causing, you're going through those different developmental stages and you are causing that child to have more tantrums, but it's only for a short period of time until you've gone through that actual stage. So
absolutely, Lara, and you know from your own child. And I think if you explain to parents, and I say to them when we do a 12-week program, at the 4 to 6 week mark, you're going to go through hell. Like it's going, if they didn't have the terrible twos at 2, you're going to have the terrible twos in a 10-year-old body or 11-year-old body. I know one family came to me and they said it happened at Christmas, and if they knew where I lived, they would have dropped the kid off. I'm just like, I'm sorry, I wasn't even home, but that kid is now speaking, and that child, like what they wanted for him was regulation and to get on with his siblings. But the brain is amazing, and I said to the dad, this kid's very intelligent, and they've come back and said the autism school has said they can't do any more for him, so he's actually gone into mainstream school and he's getting B's and C's, which is amazing.
I love it. I mean, these are the stories that I love hearing because I just know it's happening across so many pockets of the globe with Dr. Malillo's work and foundational, the foundational pieces that we all learn. But then all of the modalities that we've learned from additional practitioners are helping us in helping these children. And I know great work's happening. That's why having this podcast is so important, to get it out there and to show parents there is definitely a way of healing these children. That's right. But they're always going to be pretty incredible kids because they are. I see so many of them in my own clinic. So many are so intelligent, like off the scale intelligence. And if you just start to unlock them, that's when you start to really get the best of them to be their best version. So tell me how you talked about vagal work. So what do you mean by vagal work? Because, I've talked a lot on the podcast about primitive reflexes, and I know you do all of those. But what about the vagus nerve and the cranial nerves? How do you work there to influence the brainstem?
Okay, when I was studying and we learned about the nervous system, we basically had the sympathetic fight-flight, and then we had the parasympathetic rest, heal, and digest. And that was the only 2 systems I learned until I started doing functional neurology. Then with Dr. Rob Malillo, we were exposed to the polyvagal theory with Stephen Podgers. But what it means is that there is an older system called the dorsal vagal system. Now, that's your freeze system. That's the deer in the headlights, shut down, I don't know what to do. I'm seeing kids coming in with that fear paralysis reflex, or, the kid with the selective mutism. They can talk to certain people but not others, and that's due to the fear paralysis. Then we have the fight flight, and that's the, am I going to fight that lion? Am I going to run away? My heart's racing, all of that. Now, babies are born in the fight flight. And what happens is the vagal system, or your rest, heal, and digest system, develops between 12 to 18 months. Now, it develops by looking at mum and social engagement. So the child at 12 is looking at mum and going, is mum safe? Is this okay? Yeah, mum's safe. Okay, then I can chill and relax. Unfortunately, today's society, there's a lot of social media out there, and I find it so sad. I'm not judging, but when I see mums breastfeeding and on the phone, that baby's learning social cues and they're not getting that learning and that ability. So there's a lot that's being missed in development. So then these kids come into me and they're like 5, 6, 7-year-old, and they come in and I look at them and I can see them dialing fight flight. They're running around, they're looking at everything, and they're in fear, either fear paralysis where they shut down and freeze, or they're fighting, kicking, biting, screaming because they are in fear mode. Yeah. Their ability to self-regulate is not there. So I tell the parents, it's not just behavioral. It's the fact that they cannot shut their system down. And my job as a functional neurologist is to get the vagal system firing. So that's the first thing we do. So if I get a child that's full on and all I get to do is like vagal with the laser, that's what I do. Because you want to get them feeling safe, you want them to be able to self-regulate and self-soothe, because that comes first. So once we get that right, then we can go on and do other things to get their potential for that child.
Yeah, amazing. And in terms of how how do you help the parents? Because they come in and see you, they might do appointments or an intensive. How do you help the parents understand what they need to do at home and keep the consistency going? Because it is the consistency that changes the brain.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for parents is hope. Everywhere they've been to, I'm not putting down any of the other therapists or anything like that, they haven't given them much hope.
Yeah.
But when you say and you visualize and you go, hey, listen, in our clinic, there's been so many miracles. We've had traumatic brain injury clients walk that were told they were never going to walk. Mm-hmm. We've had kids speak that were told they were never probably going to speak. We had kids told that they're intellectually disabled and they've been able to do very, very well at school and in mainstream. And I think hope is the biggest thing. And as a parent, I think you need to sit there, visualize, and I tell the parents, I said, I need you to listen to your child's voice. I want you to imagine a day where you can hear them say, I love you, Mum. Just keep on that hope. And that's the thing about is making sure the parents get that hope. And I think once they know that you've got a track record, I think it makes a massive difference. And that's why, Lara, this podcast is so important, because it's telling parents you don't have to accept whatever's been told.
Yeah.
You don't have to accept like whatever people have told you, because they don't know how the brain works. They don't know about neuroplasticity. And basically I wrote a book called Ollie the Octopus and His Magnificent Brain because I wanted kids to know that there's hope. When my parents were coming in, I would give them Dr. Robert Melillo's Disconnected Kids. Yeah. And then for my kids, I'm thinking, what am I giving them for the ones who can read or who can understand? So I decided to write a book about sea creatures in Australia, and each of them is about giving hope. I had a kid that came in who had oppositional defiance. And if you work with those kids, Lara, it's quite hard when they're defiant. So this young girl came in and then she was very anti doing exercises, didn't want to do anything. So Mum got her the book. And in one chapter, there's Daisy, the dyslexic dolphin. Now, all kids know that dolphins are intelligent creatures, right? Yeah. So they identify with Daisy because a lot of these kids are very, very intelligent, as you said, but they just can't read. So when she read this book and she realized that Daisy could overcome her dyslexia and start reading, she was engaged. She started doing therapy. She wanted to come to the clinic because she felt if Daisy could get better, then there was hope for her. And I think that then the kids, they've been told time and time again their diagnosis, they're focused on their diagnosis. I don't, like, as a functional neurologist, I don't diagnose. I don't talk about it.
I hate labels. I really
you know what I mean? So there's whatever's been diagnosed, because the parents are obviously, when they come in, they're really like, Jen, can you not talk about, I'm like, absolutely, we talk about their superpowers. What are they good at? Let's focus on that. Let's go, okay, so if they're good at riding a bike, you're going to be super with riding the bike. And I said, when we give you laser powers, it's superpowers. And I also tell them, I'm like, just don't tell anyone, okay? Don't tell anyone about us. We keep it a secret. Sorry, that's the dog. She's a therapy dog, going crazy. We just tell them that they can get superpowers. And we focus on what they're good at, because at school, they already know that they're having issues at school. They already know that they're behind with everybody else. I don't have to tell them. I don't want to tell them that. I don't want to focus on the negatives. And I just said they're just hurdles in your brain. And my job as a functional neurologist is to find out what those hurdles is. Why aren't you reading? Your brain is phenomenal. You have an amazing, intelligent brain. Let's work out why you're not reading. Oh, your eyes aren't tracking well. Well, if you can't see the letters, you're not going to read. Yeah. And the kids get this. If you simplify it and go, you can't read the letters, how hard is it to read? How about we get your eyes moving better so you can read the letters, and let's see how you go. You can't balance? How are you going to play football? If you can't stand on one leg, how are you going to go play football? And then when we do the Fukuda test and you don't know where your brain is in space, how are you going to play football? So I don't necessarily focus on schoolwork as much. I focus more on the sports, on what they're doing. And I think, and they get it. And I think it's having that hope and being positive and focusing on their talents rather than things that they have issues. And I said the hurdles are just there temporarily. You don't have to have them for life.
And do you find many of those parents have actually taken their children out of school in order to just do the therapy for a period of time to then get them to a healed position?
That's the hardest. I think I have a lot of parents who have homeschool because they can't deal with the school. They can't deal, like they're trying to explain to the school. And I think the other issue is that school would like them to be medicated. And a lot of parents are against that. And I'm not for medication or against medication, but I think it's really hard when that's your only option to go to school. And also some of these kids, because they can't control their behavior, they are actually hurting other kids. So it's really, really hard as a parent to have a child that at 10 is biting other kids or, at 10 is kicking other kids. So as a parent, it's really, really difficult. And for that child, when they get into this rage, the right prefrontal cortex isn't firing. So that part of the brain isn't giving them an ability to stop that behavior or to realize that behavior is not right, because it's an emotional response. They're missing that pathways that tells them this is not socially acceptable, or I shouldn't be hurting others. I had a 15-year-old that came in and Dad just said, hey, Jen, do whatever you can because we're about to ship him off to boarding school because he got really angry with his sisters. But this kid is super, super intelligent. Like, he graduated at 16. And he said to me, because he could understand, he said, Jen, I know I get in a rage, but he goes, people are just stupid. My sister's friends are stupid. They're all stupid. Kids at school are all stupid. You know what I mean? Because he's so intelligent. But what we needed to do is, he's not going to change his mindset. But what we needed to do is the ability to control. And what he says is, Jen, I understand. I can feel myself getting in his rage. But he goes, I don't know how to stop it. He says, I kind of know it's not right, and I know, he said, I struggle with it. But he said, I just cannot stop it. And so once we got him through the program, like, he graduated at 16 and is brilliant. He's doing amazingly. Like he says to me, my sister's friends are still stupid, Jen, but at least I'm not saying anything to them, and the kids at school are still stupid, but I'm not, he's not falling in a rage with them, or he's actually able to step back a little bit and go, okay, let them be.
I think the most incredible thing is that so many people struggle with these types of symptoms, and so many of them you can eradicate. And that's what I love about the whole foundational work to this, is that if you know how to manipulate those connections and networks, you can actually change the brain. But so many people out there just don't understand that that's even a possibility. It just is put down as, this is what you have, so live with it. That's where, I just don't believe that. I've always come at it, even when it's what drove me with Archie, that you have to believe, 1. 2, there's always hope, like you said. But if you believe that there is something different and you go and seek that out, then those are the people that end up either finding me, you, Kyle, so many others that are. And I was at the C3 conference in Atlanta with all of the, a lot of the other functional neurology practitioners globally. And it was just amazing because they're all doing such incredible work, but it's such a tiny little group of people across the globe that this needs to get out there in terms of this. There's so much you can do for your child. Tell me a bit more about some of the other children that you've helped, in terms of what their symptoms were, and then the program that you put them through, and then the transformation that you've seen.
All right, so one comes to mind, and I actually wrote my published case study on this kid. So, Mum, there was a radio announcer who's a friend of mine, and her kids came in, she mentioned it. And so Mum thought, I'll come in. So we have this young kid, and what happened was when the older brother was 4 and they went to the paediatrician, and this kid was sitting down at 2.5 playing with his cards, being quiet, nothing much. And the paediatrician just looked over and said, is that, not even the client, said, is that kid speaking? And Mum said, no, not really. And Mum wasn't concerned. And then the paediatrician said, that kid's probably never going to speak, and he's going to have intellectually disabled his whole life. That's
how can you put something on?
I don't know. Not even a kid. So you should have seen when she came in and she was like, okay, all right, I've tried everything, I'll just come in. She sat there in his chair with her arms crossed, Like, what do you think you're going to do? Because, you know, I've been everywhere. But our husband was on board. He's like, frequencies? He's like, oh, you're talking about frequencies? I'm like, yes. And so we started him on care. Within 4 weeks, this kid was having conversations. 4
Really?
weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, so now he's in mainstream school, doing incredibly well.
Yeah.
And the thing is that what we did is nothing different. So when I first started being mentored by Dr. Kyle, I'd be going, oh, this kid's got this, this, and this. And Kyle goes, what do we start with? Primitive reflexes and vagal. And he goes, yeah. Start with that. So with every kid that I do is that whatever they're coming with is I assess them for primitive reflexes. I check their heart rate on both sides and the oxygen sats. I look for vagal tone and I look for all of that. And all we do is generally start with primitive reflexes. We do intensives like Dr. Carl Daigle does with the lasers and Resimax and a couple of other different things to stimulate the brain. We also do, with the thing with Jude that's different is that we really focus on the brainstem. So the brainstem is in between your spinal cord and your brain. So it's basically the highway with so many hubs of communication. And a lot of people don't even look at that. So with the brainstem, that's where all your primitive reflexes, the nuclei sit in there, but also your facial nerve and your cranial nerves, all the nuclei sit in that brainstem. So because we know it, so we kind of like hijack the system because we start stimulating the cranial nerves. We start by putting peppermint on the tip of the tongue, which stimulates your facial nerve, number 7. And then we start to stimulate this area of the face, which is your trigeminal nerve. That's got the longest nuclei in the brainstem. So what we're doing is co-activating. So what we're doing is we're stimulating it as much as we know. Like we've got peppermint on the tongue. We're putting pads on their face. We're waking up the trigeminal nerve. We're using the Resimax on the feet, or we're using the Interax, whatever it is. We're using lasers. We're using all of that to co-activate, so we reach threshold a lot quicker. I mean, the exercises are amazing that in the Disconnected Kids book, which is you're doing, but I think the brain needs a little bit more. So with the exercises, it takes a long time, but if we can hijack the system and if we can co-activate, like I went all the way to Lake Charles in Louisiana with Dr. Carl just to learn to put pads on the face. I'm like, Carl, you could have just told me. I didn't have to come all the way to Lake Charles, but it was amazing being in his clinic because I took in so much. Carl sees the most severe cases, and that's not what I want. I want my nonverbal kids to speak, and I'm in the in-between. But we're using all some of the techniques that he does, and that's just been amazing because the moment we came back and I started using those techniques, that's when all these kids started speaking.
Yeah,
like
it's incredible.
Adults as well. So we've got like one of my adults is he's 32, nonverbal. But the thing about him, no eye contact. He'd come in, no facial emotion, and throughout the time we've got him speaking. But the first thing we noticed is that was emotions. He started. His mum said, "Oh, he's just laughing." For no reason. I go, that's fantastic. He's feeling emotions because our brain needs to feel emotions before we will speak. Yeah. So we have to get out of the introspection, we have to get out of just feeling our bodies. But if these kids can't feel their bodies, they're so behind. So the first thing we need to do is the ability for them to feel their bodies. Then we need to feel emotions. If you don't feel emotions, you're not going to have empathy. Yeah. One of my mums was saying, she said, oh, Jen, 6 years old, dropped him off at school. And she said, Jen, he cried for the first time. I was so happy. Wow. I mean, I know when I dropped my son off, I had this guilt. He went to childcare. I'm thinking, I shouldn't be a working mum. Went to childcare, he cried, and I feel guilty all the time. Yeah. But then for this mum, just imagine as a mum, your child doesn't care whether you're there or not until he's 6. That's massive. Yeah. You're not getting that, I don't know about Archie's probably an angel, but, you get to that child where you want to actually throttle your own child because they're driving you insane. And then they give you a smile and you go, oh, maybe I'll keep him for a bit longer. It's that dopamine hit. Yeah. So a lot of these mums with autistic kids don't get that dopamine hit. You don't get that eye-to-eye contact. You don't get the I love you. You don't get the smile. You're missing that connection, which for a mum is so hard.
It is
because
so hard.
As a mum, we get to threshold and we want to throttle our kids, and then we get that dopamine hit and we go, oh, yeah, that's okay. He's
okay
cute,
now. Yeah.
But as a mum with an autistic kids, you're already getting judged by everybody else because they think it's parenting. You're getting judged for the food you're giving them. Grandparents have a different view. This didn't happen in my day, so just slap it out of them. All of those judgments, and as a mum, you're struggling, you're overwhelmed, you're overburdened, and people are telling you all these negatives. So to come into our centres like yours and mine, and to be given hope, that's massive. To be told that
it is, and also you've got to get people also need to believe it, because I also work with some parents that just say, yeah, I hope so, and it's like, no, you have to believe. Like, you have to believe. No, I hope so. No, it's about you believing too, because I can believe for you, but you need to believe it, because then it's going to happen. I know. So it's a lot of deep emotional side to it, because these parents have grieved for the child that they never had. Until now, until the change starts happening, and then you start to see them come alive as well. It's lovely. It's do you work with anybody who then does any lab testing? Do you go down the route of gut testing and neural zoomers?
Yes, because I'm in Australia.
Yeah,
I'm very restricted.
Are you? I didn't realise. So that's we do in the UK. I just didn't know whether there is somebody in that whole area that you work with. Like, do you work with other practitioners like OTs and speech therapists as well during that program? Visual processing, auditory processing. I just didn't know what your pathway looked like.
So generally with a lot of our cases is that they're already working with a naturopath or an integrative GP who are doing all that stuff, because I'm quite restricted with what I can do from a nutritional point of view. I know some of my clients do consult with Jared in the US. Yes. So, because they go with Kyle and then go to Jared. So then I do have other pathways where they do go in and see other people. So I'm I can order those tests, but then I'm so restricted with what I can and can't do. So I'd rather they go see someone else for that. And then with the OTs and speechies, they find that once we start them, getting them on the way, then they start to get results. So I often get videos from speechies saying, hey, look, they're saying this word or they're doing this. Once you get them on the road, then they can learn. They can do so much more. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they're able to learn. Yeah, absolutely. And so, you're using photobiomodulation, and it's game changing, absolutely game changing. And I've had a laser for like 7 years. I love it. And I used it on Archie, and it just made such a huge difference to him. I basically grew his left brain, so I know the power of it. But how do parents take on light therapy? Because you obviously need to do a lot of education around it. Because I was one of those parents initially when we were together in Barcelona, and there was Kyle and Brandon at the front with Dr. Malillo, and Brandon was waving a laser on Archie.
I know.
And nobody had said, I'm just going to use this red light laser on Archie. Is that okay? And I was like, what are they doing? But if I knew the power of that laser then, I'd have bought one on the spot. But it took me, I don't know, another 3 or 4 months before I went to see Kyle, and then I bought one and came back with one. But how do you help your parents understand the power of it?
I think it's results. I think, and I explained to them that because I've had a few parents being told that, oh no, and when I was on Channel 9 and then I got the ABC, I got a lot of hate about, oh, she's using this light energy, she's a witch doctor. Oh, I got so much hate about lasers and, what does she know? But I think lasers are the cutting edge. And it's new, and I think that's what's it's really hard. But I tell parents the side effects are so minimal, and once they see, and I think it's demonstrating when they're coming to an intensive, I generally take the heart rate, I do laser on vagal, and then I take the heart rate afterwards. And once they see that the heart rate drops, then they're like, oh wow, that's amazing. And I've said it's light energy. Every single part of our body has a frequency. Our body vibrates at a frequency. So all they've done with the laser is using light energy to match the frequency of our brain or that organ. And I actually use the laser on the therapy dog that's sleeping down here. So she's got a limp. So, you know, I laser it and she's great. I think it's once they see the changes, then they're on board. And I think also the fact that although it might be new, there is 7,000 peer-reviewed research articles out there about photomodulation. So it's not new. It's just new to them. Like it's been around for a long time, and I think once you realise that it is scientific, it has been researched, and the side effects are so minimal, and if it's in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, you're going to get phenomenal results. And I think the other thing as well is that we've got a QEEG machine, and it's taking brainwaves and finding out what's going on in that brain and how we can help in. That's incredible. That's what we use.
Is that the one with the amazing report? Is that the iSync helmet that you've got?
The iSync helmet, yes.
Yeah, that's the one I'm getting in the new year. And it's really good because the parents have an amazing report which really tells them what's going on in the brain. And it also gives you a great understanding as to, well, it just basically matches up with your functional assessment so that you know you can just back up what you're going to be doing next. So I am so grateful that you could join me. I know you've got a very busy clinic today, and I'm very mindful of that. And I would, I'd love to pick up with you again and do this again in, another 12 months and hear some of those amazing stories. But I'm hoping that within that period of time, lots of people will be seeing this. And I've even had somebody in Brisbane call me, can you believe it, in the UK, because they found me on a podcast. But, I'll be passing people to you, but hopefully this will create more of an opportunity for parents to get in touch and come and see you in the clinic and have an assessment, so that
absolutely. I think it's just realizing there's no ceiling to hope.
No,
there is always hope,
and there's always
and the brain's and I think the brain's neuroplastic. We don't know. Like if we can stimulate the brain to do whatever it can, it's amazing. And I think don't accept limitations. Don't accept someone else's story for you, because this is your story. This is your why, to search for the answer, to go on the journey, to find out the people that are going to help you, or the people that believe that there is hope. And I think that's missing, unfortunately, in a lot of allied health professionals out there. But I think if you know, and you, like I know, like that I'm going to get that child to speak, it's not being boastful. It's just that the ability is in there, in that child.
Absolutely.
And it's just unlocking. It's just unlocking and getting rid of those hurdles. It's unlocking the doors and getting rid of those hurdles. And it's that child being able to be their full potential. And I think that's important. It's their ability to do incredible things in the world. And they're the chosen ones. They're the ones who are, they're ones that are going to change the world. Yes. Yeah. And I always say to the parents, your child, because of this journey, they're going to make amazing changes in the world. They're the warriors. They're the game changers. They're the game changers in the world, and we just see them in the future, and they're going to be phenomenal because their brains are wired differently.
Most definitely, and we're just there to help unlock them. I think it's
absolutely
it's incredible. Yes. And Jen, thank you. Thanks for joining me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so grateful that you chose me as to be on the podcast.
I know. And we'll definitely do it again, because there's just so many other stories of hope that I want to listen to from you. If you've really enjoyed this podcast, then please go on and subscribe. It helps in driving the users up and more people to actually listen to this podcast and share it. Please share it and send it to somebody you know, so that we can actually pass out these stories of hope to so many more other people. See you next time.